Story 1, you look happier. I have been struggling for a long time, and sometimes I still am, but it felt nice to know someone noticed. Story 2, a girl who identified as asexual once liked me a lot. That felt different because it meant she truly appreciated my personality. Story 3, my spouse once said, in public, in my hearing, about me, she creates beauty. I was astonished. I had been working on a long-neglected garden and finally seeing results, and his comment made all the blisters and bug bites worthwhile. Story 4, I was at a Brand Smart with a couple of friends about 22 years ago. We were sitting near the vending machines, and I wanted a bottle of water. The dollar portion of the machine was broken and only accepted coins. When I noticed it, I softly said, "Damn, only coins," and walked back to my bench. 2 seconds later, I heard the jiggling of coins. An elderly lady called me over, dropped quarters in my hand, and said, "Here you go, handsome fella. Get what you need." Story 5. From a non-romantic perspective, the classic cute Latina nurse complimented my new hair and said it made my eyes stand out. I am female, not particularly interested in women, but I can appreciate beauty in them. I have always thought my eyes were my best feature and have been working on my self-esteem, so it was really nice to hear. Story 6. I was eating alone in a Chinese restaurant in New York City when an elderly Asian man at the next table said, "You use chopsticks like you were Chinese." This was over 25 years ago, and occasionally I reflect on it, and it makes me happy. Story 7. I recently got a goofy-looking mustache, and it's so fun to see people looking at me, smiling, or trying to hold back their laughter. Story 8. One of my students told me that he loved coming into my classroom because you are the same person every day. Story 9. A young lady on a bus asked me if I wanted to have children with her. She said I was really attractive and that she would have my children. Story 10. I really don't receive compliments, but when I was a cashier, a girl I was ringing up bit her lip as she looked me up and down. I don't think I'll ever forget that memory. Story 11. Someone was playing My Way by Frank Sinatra on the microphone while gaming, and I decided to sing along. A random 11-year-old asked, "Why am I hearing two of the same song? Oh my God. I am still living off that high." Story 12. Someone I know was talking about who their friends would be in a fantasy novel, and I imagined a witch living in the woods who is quietly and tragically in love with a witch hunter. That's intriguing. Story 13. I can't believe your face, body, mind, and everything about you are all in one person. That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. I still think of it when I need a boost. Story 14. At the end of a summer training deployment as a Navy midshipman, I had a chief petty officer say, "I'd work for you." Story 15. About 20 years ago, a woman approached me in a grocery store and asked if I was a model or had any modeling experience. It felt predatory but flattering, similar to the first time a supervisor inappropriately touched me. Story 16. For context, I work as a civilian within a military branch. The moment that stands out the most was when I was assisting a woman in uniform with her work. She stopped me mid-sentence and told me that I have beautiful eyes. I stumbled through the next few instructions. Story 17. I've been sure my whole life that I was not attractive as a male. However, recently a girl said I was handsome. I don't know how to accept that compliment. Story 18. Once, a training manager mentioned in a meeting that I should have my doctorate. She was sincere, especially coming from someone who never attended college and only has work experience. This was a very nice compliment to receive. Story 19. I was at Disneyland, and the ticket attendant said, "Your son looks exactly like you." We were celebrating his 20th birthday. We are very close and share a similar personality. He's my baby. His older brother has always resembled my husband more. Story 20. You have an amazing wife and kids. You look happy. Is that your last name on the truck? It's easy for others to look and think I have it all, but they don't see the struggles we've overcome. It's been a journey, that's for sure. Story 21. You are such an amazing father. my girlfriend said the other day while I was laughing on the floor with our 4-year-old daughter. It still makes me feel choked up. Story 22. Not really a compliment, but I was thanked profusely for not running over a girl on the outskirts of a mosh pit. I was headed full force towards her and I fell while trying to stop. It would have been bad. I guess that's the closest to a compliment I've ever received. Story 23. One day, I was at university, and a guy was looking at me. My friend was nearby, buying something, and she overheard him say to his friend, "If I had that girl's face, I would be an absolute menace." Story 24. A girl in college told me that I have very pretty eyes. I laughed and said thank you. I didn't know how to react. Story 25. I participated in a creative writing program one summer in high school, and in my evaluation, the instructor wrote that I could make a life with my words. It was incredibly meaningful to know that someone who had made a career in writing believed I was talented enough to do the same. Story 26. When we were about 16, my Sri Lankan family went with some friends to Buffalo from near Toronto to shop at Walden Galleria for the first time. We were walking through the mall when a black woman approached us and asked, "Where are you guys from?" We said Sri Lanka, and she replied, "Well, you're very beautiful people." I had never experienced that before. Story 27. I was roommates with the coolest girl ever in college. Her friend, who is very sweet, came over. I wanted to be their friend so much. They were talking, and I was hanging out with them when they said I was like a combination of both of them. Even though I couldn't see it myself, it was a huge confidence boost. Story 28. You are a great mom. I cried because I thought I messed up, but they actually love and respect me. Others notice. Story 29. When I was 18, I attended a Lutheran convention in New Orleans. There were thousands of teenagers and young adults there. One day, near the end of the convention, a woman approached me and said, "Oh my gosh, I saw you a few days ago and didn't know if I would see you again, but I had to let you know that you were the most gorgeous girl I have ever seen." I thought that was a wonderful compliment. I have been told I am pretty and gorgeous many times in my life, but I have never had a random stranger come up to me and say I am the most gorgeous girl they have ever seen. Story 30. You look the same. Given to me by a teenage boy, it's definitely memorable. I haven't aged or changed in years. Story 31. My partner and I were approached by an older lady who asked if we would like to participate in a research panel. Throughout our conversation, she kept staring at my face. As we were leaving, she said, "You have the most beautiful eyes." I was about 40 at the time. Story 32. The first time I heard my dad curse was when he told me, "Dang, you really went for it out there. Amazing job." After I finished my first cross-country race in high school, felt like he broke his own moral code to congratulate me. Story 33. I was a great listener, and it made me feel amazing. I hadn't thought about it before, but I truly enjoy helping people. Story 34. I had just started seeing this girl who, at the time, seemed out of my league. I played her a song I had been working on, and she was silent the entire time, which is already rare. When I finished, I looked at her, and she was just staring at me, shaking her head. She said, "You're a genius," as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. That was about 14 years ago, and I still think about it often. We are still friends to this day, and every time I show her a new song, she reiterates how she feels about my songwriting. Not many people care about my music, but it connects with people from time to time. To be dating someone who felt so unattainable and to have them feel that way about my passion was just amazing. Story 35. I was just scrolling and saw this post. I stopped and thought about it, but I can't think of one. I don't know how to feel about that. I've been complimented, but nothing so genuine that it touched me. Story 36. People should listen more to your ideas. After talking with you, I know that you could have prevented this whole situation. An information technology scientist told me this after he conducted an investigation into a significant failure at an international company. The failure lasted for almost a year and was a disaster. I made a timely proposal through proper channels to address the issues, but nobody wanted to listen. I felt awful, but hearing this from an industry leader later helped me feel better. Another instance occurred during an exchange with a friend from college. Due to financial reasons, I was never able to finish my studies, but I gained a lot of experience through work. My friend received the highest honors when he graduated, and I worked with him for several years. One day, he heard me express my lack of confidence in my knowledge and experience in the field. He told me, "We have been working together for several years now. I see the quality of your work every day. I don't care if you didn't graduate. You're an engineer in my book. He is like a brother to me, a great person." Story 37. A girl once saw me and exclaimed how surprised she was by its size, even when not erect. Story 38. A man at the bar said my hair was the best thing they had ever seen and that it looked kind of like it was from the 80s. I will never forget that. Story 39. Several women have complimented me on my hands in the past. As a hardworking man, I find it interesting and somewhat amusing, but a compliment is a compliment. I have also received compliments on my hazel-colored eyes. This has happened 3 times, and all have been from women of color. I'm not sure if there is something to that. Story 40. An idiot savant once told me I have the perfectly shaped head. It was 40 years ago. I believe it was true at the time. Story 41. At the bar, I am a new regular. There are people of all ages. I am 57, and a group of 21 to 25-year-old girls and guys say they notice how I help those who are either drunk or mentally exhausted, and they appreciate me for it. One guy showed me a picture of his dad who passed away and mentioned that he feels he is very much like his father. Story 42. I worked as a loadmaster for a major airline. After becoming too disabled to continue in that career field, I requested a letter of recommendation from my former chief of training. He stated that I was the most knowledgeable person he had ever trained and that I was the only individual in his 15 years of training to achieve a perfect score in all training modules. He also mentioned that I was a great mentor and that I should have been his superior. Story 43. As someone who was bullied for her looks in high school, "You look like a model." I find it amusing that dyeing my natural brunette hair to ginger makes me smile or feel proud when someone thinks I am a natural ginger. Story 44. This pertains to my art. A random person said, "Your talent needs to be employed." As a young artist with 4 years dedicated to my craft and 2 years in business, that is literally the nicest and coolest thing anyone has ever said to me about my art. Story 45. My ex told me I was the most important person she had ever had in her life, including family. She said that after we broke up and were parting ways, and I will never forget it. I don't know if anyone could ever tell me something that made me feel that way. Story 46. I was at the mall with my friends, dancing, when an older lady unexpectedly said, "Hey, that's pretty good," and then walked off. I hope that lady is still alive and well right now. Story 47. One section is about me, and the other is about what I do. The first part reflects on my mother and grandmother noticing that I seem happier and that I actually want to live again. Things have been challenging recently, but they shared this with me some time ago. Regarding what I do, I write poetry. My mother encouraged me to write a book, and I made my father cry twice with my poetry, which is something I had never seen him do before. Story 48. One person at work recently said, "This place has gotten a lot better since you started here." He is usually not serious about anything, but I could tell he was sincere. I almost started to cry. It's the little things that matter. Story 49. It is rude. I mentioned it here a few days ago. At that time, I was overweight and wearing plain and boring clothes. I wasn't doing anything to stand out or be special. Story 50. Shortly after a career change in television, one of my first jobs was at a company where I had worked on a couple of shows. I wasn't receiving any feedback, so I was constantly waiting to be fired or not brought back. During the Christmas party, I ran into one of the executives, and she said, "Oh, so you're the big deal everyone's been talking about. I heard you're doing a great job." I had been close to broke for a while, and it felt like an incredible weight lifted off my shoulders to finally feel secure in my position. Story 51. I heard people say that I look like a manga or anime character sometimes. I would say this one really did resonate. Story 52. This is a bit of an unusual situation. I was a nepotistic hire at my father's company and immediately set to doing a great job. I soon clashed with him because he wanted me to be harsh with our employees, and I refused on both ethical and business grounds. I worked hard to gain our employees' trust and respect and prove my place there. While I never proved it to my father, I knew I was who I needed to be when an employee called me in tears because he had yelled at her over something he had made up and needed support. She reached out to me, even though it was my father who had abused her, because she trusted me enough that I wouldn't report her. I wish I could say I somehow helped her. I was as supportive as I could be and implied that quitting was the only way I could guarantee it wouldn't happen again, and that I would provide her with a solid reference. Story 53. There is nothing about you that needs changing. Please don't rely on others' average opinions of you. It was received from one of my close friends. I was feeling low at the time, and it has remained the best advice stuck in my mind. Story 54. You have made your father proud. This was told to me by my chef who used to be his chef during my first time running a line solo. Story 55. I was once told I was a great storyteller. We were on a night shift, and I had been explaining the plot of a book I was reading. I hadn't realized I had been talking longer than polite conversation would allow. When I finished and could hear how much I had talked, he simply said, "You are a very good storyteller." It was a fantastic compliment. Story 56. I was at a friend's birthday party. A girl I had broken up with the previous year didn't know I was there or that I could hear her. She talked about how I was one of the smartest people she had ever met. Story 57. I wore a suit on a flight to Hawaii as a lighthearted gesture for my son and the children of my best friend who were traveling with us. Upon boarding the plane, the attractive flight attendant looked at me, caught her breath and said, "Oh wow, you're just really put together." Since that day, I have obviously never stopped dressing up to fly. Story 58. Probably when someone said I could be the next superhero because of my ability to avoid social situations. Story 59. That I am quite funny. I tend to joke about most things in life, especially at work. I try to make people and myself laugh as much as possible. I do it unconsciously most of the time, so it felt really nice when my humor was acknowledged. I usually feel like I'm just being annoying. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.